welcome back to my channel, Sophie B Art. Today I'm going to be showing you how I drew a watercolor rose, first using pencil, then going in with watercolor and a little bit of pen and Prismacolor at the end. I was inspired by this rose while I was on my walk in Reno, Nevada, hiking, and I saw a litany of several different roses. And so I found this rose, snapped a photo, and decided to paint it later on. The rose, which I will link below, was originally a pink rose, but I've been wanting to experiment a little bit more with orange watercolor, and so I decided to make our pink tea rose an orange tea rose. So all you botanists out there, please don't be mad at me. I wanted to have some more fun with this. I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial and see my process, and thanks, and I'll see you guys along the way.
1, 2, 3, you put your eyes on me. 4, 5, 6, and my feelings are mixed. 7, 8, 9, I just follow the signs.
So I start out my rose by sketching a light circle to get an idea of where the boundaries of my drawing are. I draw a small circle for the middle of my flower, and because the rose petals layer outwards around the flower, I divide my flower sketch into 8 parts. It's almost mandala-like. I draw some additional circles inside so I can easily draw each row of petals. Believe me, there's no need to make this harder for yourself by drawing without mapping it out. It's so much easier to first take the time to create a frame for your drawing and then get more detailed as you work. This will save you so much time in the long run. So here I'm using a reference photo to lightly sketch out my petals. I erase all the little markings I made from my first sketch and then lightly erase over my entire drawing, leaving just enough pencil marking to know where to paint over. Now time for watercolor. I'm starting with one petal and will work my way around. I first prime the paper for paint by adding a thin layer of water over the petal. I'm not messy with this. I'm very neat with the edges and with the paintbrush. Now I can drop in the paint pigment and it will naturally run with the water I just set down. I know it can be scary to let go of control and let the paint do its drippy thing, but try to have fun with it. This wet on wet technique can create a really cool streaky look that will end up making our petals look more realistic. While your petals are wet, you can drop in any color you want. I've added cadmium red, lemon yellow, and Alzarin crimson. As I drop in the pigments, I'm picking up my paper to allow gravity to help the pigment drip down into the water. Moving the paper around helps the pigment spread evenly to ensure the water and the pigment doesn't pool in one place. This is why I never tape my watercolor paper down to the table. You just can't move it around the same way, or at all for that matter.
7, 8, 9, I just follow the signs. 10, kiss me in the rain.
Another pro tip, make sure when you paint your petals, you don't paint them next to each other. Pigments love to travel where the water is. So if your petals are right next to each other and they're both wet, then your paints will all mix together with each other and it won't really create a distinct petal line. If you mess up, dry off your brush to create what I call a thirsty brush. Putting your dry brush on the wet will suck up any unwanted drippiness. Also, I kept this next part in because I thought it was hilarious. I tried to show the camera the masking glue and completely failed, dropped it, and got it all over my painting. I take the masking glue and make some dots with a toothpick for the stamen of the flower. These have very tiny highlights, so I want to preserve the white of the paper while I go over this area with paint later on. Now that my first layer of wet on wet technique has dried, I go in and put some details. I want the petals to look a little more distinct than they were, so I mixed up some of my cadmium red with my Alzarin crimson to get a darker color. Then I take my brush and start creating some petal veins, create shadows, and outline some of the petals. Since the light is cast directly onto the rose, I'm not too worried about creating super dark shadows. However, I did mix some green with my cadmium red to create a darker brown color for just a few dark spots on the flower. If you want to make dark colors with watercolor, I recommend mixing complementary colors, such as what I did with orange and green. I never use black to mix. It just overpowers the image and doesn't look natural, in my opinion.
One, two, three, you put your eyes on me. 4, 5, 6, and my feelings are mixed. 7, 8, 9, I just follow the signs. 10, kiss me in the rain. 1, 2, 3, you're too blind to see. 4, 5, 6, that I'm taking the risk. 7, 8, 9, I just follow the line. 10, kiss me in the rain.
Now I'm going in with a sap green mixed with a bit of lemon yellow to paint the middle of the flower. Remember, I'm not worried about the stamen of the flower because I have masking glue on there. Once I peel it off, the white of the paper will be preserved.
Play with me, I'll play with you. I just want us to be true. Tell me that you love me too.
After the masking glue has dried, I rub it off using an eraser. You can also rub it off with just your fingers if you want to. I go in and add some final details for the stamen of the flower. I wish I had a smaller brush for this, but the size 6 worked fine too. I would recommend maybe a size 0 or 1 for the fine details.
We're just children. We're just children.
I added some black micron pen to make the final detail touches, then took my yellow Prismacolor pencil and made some highlights, and a maroon colored pencil to get some other darks to balance it out. The green also made it look a tad bit earthier. Last, I painted some white gouache to add a few last highlights. And voila, we are done. I hope you guys enjoyed my tutorial, and please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more upcoming videos. Comment below on some ideas you'd like to see in the future. See you next time!
just children. We're just children. Children, children.